Alright, welcome to Crochet Basics again. My name is Christina. We're going to be talking today about some of your basic stitches. The first thing that we want to learn to do is to make a slip knot and put our slip knot on our hook so that we can start our foundation chain and learn our first stitch, which is called the chain stitch. We're going to begin with our H hook. Oh, that's our G. Make sure you have your H hook. Of course, if it's the G, it's not a big problem, but the H is what we're going to start with. When you get your yarn, the tail is not always sticking out like this is here. Sometimes it's kind of tucked in that center, and you'll just have to reach in and kind of pull out a plug of yarn in order to get it to pull out. But that's how you get your ball of yarn going. You want to do it from the center just because it's easier to work with than trying to unwrap it around the ball of yarn. I'm going to go ahead and pull out some yarn here so that I have plenty to work with. You don't typically want a whole lot pulled out, but sometimes that center plug, as you can see, will pull out a lot of yarn. Just kind of unwrap it and get it straightened out, or you'll have it all tangled up. I guess it's good that it kind of came out that way. That way I can show you how you need to straighten it out when it comes out in a mess like that. Sometimes that happens. That's okay. And just straighten it out and move on. So the first thing we're going to do is make our slip knot. Now when you begin to work, you always want to leave yourself about a 6-inch tail. And the reason why we do this is at the end, when you're finished with your project, you're going to want to tuck that tail in. Because as time goes, after you make something, sometimes those stitches will work loose and you may need a little extra yarn. And you can't always find the same color yarn. So you'll want just a little bit that you can use for making repairs and stuff like that if stitches work their way loose. So leave yourself a 6-inch tail. The way I make my slip knot, and you may have your own way of making slip knots, but for those of you who are not familiar with making slip knots, what's easiest for me, I hang my yarn with my tail away from me over my fingers. I twist my yarn around to make a crossover, and then I grab my working yarn that's on this other side and pull it up through my loop. And then if you'll just pull and tighten, you have a slip knot. Then you want to take your hook, slip it inside this knot. If you'll grab the working side of your yarn and pull, it tightens on your loop. And that's your beginning slip knot loop. You always want your working yarn coming toward you and your tail away from you and back to the side. That way it doesn't get in the way when you begin to work. And that is your slip knot.